All right, now we're looking at day 7. This is multiplying by powers of 10. Students are coming to us from 4th grade knowing how to multiply whole numbers by powers of 10. So they started multiplying 3 times 1, one group of 3, 3 times 10, 10 groups of 3, 3 times 100, 100 groups of 3. And they start to notice a pattern there that every single time there were the same number of zeros as there were in that power of 10. Gradually throughout the course of the year, they learned more and more conceptual skills, and even like they got to some pretty procedural fluency. By the end, they were also multiplying something like this, like 30 times 50. We're recognizing this as 3 tens times 5 tens. 3 times 5 is 15. 10 times 10 is 100, right? And so then they would write 15 hundredths, which is the same as 1,500. And even when it's more tricky, like this, when we have some zeros, right? So this is 50 times 20, 5 tens times 2 tens. That would give us 10 hundredths. And so what's tricky there is that sometimes students just imagine like, oh, I have 2 zeros, and so my answer needs to have 2 zeros. But breaking it down this way really allowed students to see that they would have 10 hundredths, which would be the same as 1,000. In 5th grade, we're going to first start with 2 mini lessons for this. The first mini lesson will be using exponents, right? 100, 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000 in exponential form. And then after we've nailed that in about 8 minutes, then we'll go back and we'll actually use a place value chart, which is the first way that students multiplied these in 4th grade. We'll use a place value chart to multiply them in 5th grade. Same thing, we can always use a place value chart for any problems, so show our thinking for any problems in 5th grade place value. So we're going to front load some information for students. Base, exponent tells me how many times the base is used as a factor. So we have 4 factors here. This would be 10 to the 4th power. And then students will be able to multiply 10 times 10 we know is 100, times 10 is 10 hundredths, which is the same as 1,000, times 10 would be 10,000. And then we say that this is called powers. These have some special words. And then this says, what exponent will make this equation true? It says 10 to the question mark equals 1,000. And so I start to just try. I know that 10 times 10 is 100. So I know I need more zeros than that. So let's try 10 groups of that. 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So I know I have 3 factors here. So I have 10 to the 3rd. Then after students do that one example, you'll have them do the guided practice for that. So there's 2 guided practice problems, right? Right after in the materials it has powers of 10, 2 guided practice problems, 6 independent practice problems. In all, we don't want this lasting more than 8 minutes. This will happen very fast. This work will go pretty fast for kids once they catch on. Great, and then you'll go back. It'll be like the next thing in your classwork packet is multiplying by powers of 10. So again, we're going to start off the same way that students did when they learned how to do this in 4th grade. 3 times 10 is the same as 10 groups of 3. So when I multiply, I'm going to be using a place value chart. I have 3 ones. I'm taking 10 groups of them. I know that 3 times 10 is 30. What I notice is that now my 3 slides into my tens place, right? And then we write in here after times 10. 3 times 100, this is 100 groups of 3. I notice that my 3 slides into my hundreds place. And 3 times 1,000 is the same. So what we know is that when I have 3 times 10, that means 10 groups of 3. That's the same as 3 tens or 31s. My 3 keeps sliding into a larger and larger place value. What we notice is every time we're multiplying by a number that's 10 times as large, right? 100 is 10 times as large as 10. And so my 3 is in the next place value to the right, to the left. So when I multiply by a number that is 10 times as large, I get my quotient is also 10 times as large, and so it slides into the next place value. What we want students to recognize and start to be building to their understanding is that every time I move one place value to the left, I'm getting 10 times larger. Okay, so now we're going to add some decimals. And then again, I had some ones in here so that it makes sense to students, because once we start multiplying hundredths times 10, I can see where that gets a little confusing. But if I multiply by 10, every number gets 10 times larger, right? And so I had 4 ones, now I'm going to have 40 ones. And so we slide the 4 into the tens place, which is the same as 40 ones, right? And so everything else then slides. This is the point where you want to have students start to write their own place value chart, because this is how we want students showing their work for every single problem, writing our place value charts. Oops. This. Then we multiply by 10 squared. So before we multiply by 10 squared, we have to remember 10 squared is what? 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. Great, before we multiply by 10 to the third power, or 10 cubed, we have to remember 10 cubed is 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. And so, again, we notice the same pattern. When I'm multiplying by a number that is 10 times larger, then it's sliding one more place value to the left. Key concepts here is we can use a place value chart to multiply by 10, 100, and 1,000. We use a place value chart to determine the relationship between digits in a number, right? So like this number, the 4, is 1, or I guess this 4, we'll start here. This 4 is 1,000 times as big as this 4. And then finally, a digit in one place represents 10 times as much as the place to its right. All right, so like every time we move one place value left, we're getting 10 times bigger. The tens is 10 times as much as the ones.